Please subscribe, like, and share. Today we'll talk about rocker arm ratios and how we can effectively gain power without spending too much money. Instead of switching to the next camshaft with the same expense and buying new lifters, or if it's a roller lifters, you can reuse the lifters and use that on the new cam grind. But it's cheaper if you go with a rocker arm change sometimes. And reality is, if you change the rocker arm ratio and your car picked up, that means you're heading in the right direction. If you change the rocker arm ratio, then the car slowed down, maybe the cam is too big. Okay, at least you found out, instead of switching over, taking off the intake manifold, taking out timing chain, pull the camshaft out, a rocker ratio change will tell you a lot on which direction the engine wants to go. Okay, so anyway, do the change right there, and then at the same time, note. Okay, if you change just the intake ratio, they'll tell you a lot. If you change the intake and exhaust ratio, if the budget is there, do it. Okay, and if you pick up, I think you're headed in the right direction, and keep going and stepping up maybe again with a camshaft change later on. Taking into note that you did change your rocker arm ratio now a full point or 2 points higher than stock. Okay, so you won't be surprised. I did one not that long ago here, and it was a Yates headed engine, and I look at the camshaft. It said on the cam spec sheet, it said 750 lift. Well, okay, but by the time I started cycling the engine and I'm watching the rocker arm geometry, I go, my God, for 750, that sure is lifting a whole lot. And I look at the rocker arm, it was adjusted, it was tagged 1.7. But in reality, it was actually 1.85. They tried to cheat with a rocker arm, so when I guess the section of body looks at the rocker arm, oh, okay, that's it. It's tagged 1.7, so it's a 1.7. Actually, it's a lot more than that. Okay, so somehow they're trying to cheat. Good thing I caught it, or else I would have grenaded this engine. Imagine if I did that. I put a dial indicator in there, and instead of reading 750, I was looking at, it was like 830, 870. No, it was 820 or something like that. Like, oh my God. That's why the spring was stacking solid. That's the first thing that told me something not right here. But anyway, please watch this video, like and subscribe and share so we can keep this going. Thank you very much. Enjoy. What else do I have here? Rocker ratio. Okay. This is one of the roller tip rocker arms. Whoop. Unimpressive, stock looking, but it's got a free, what do you call that, a roller tip. So it kind of tend to take a little less drag to actuate this thing to open the valve. And here's a true roller rocker arm. And especially Chevrolets, they come in a 1:5 ratio. 1:5 ratio, you switch to a 1:6 ratio. You gain something like 30 thousandths lift, thereabouts, something like that. Okay, so when you do this, you actually gain a little bit more power, especially if you put that on the intake. If you put a 1:7 ratio, a 1:6 ratio on a Chevrolet on the exhaust, you will hardly see anything. Okay, it's the intake. You put a 1.5 to a 1.6. Oh, where's my calculator right there? But anyway, when you put a 1.5 to 1.7 ratio rocker arm, there's a big jump in lift. Okay? Same thing with the Fords. You put it comes with a 1.6, and you put a 1.7 ratio rocker arm, you're gonna gain some lift and hence horsepower. Just think about that. Okay? And it's amazing. It's a simple, some people say, okay, you know what? I want to step up to a little bit more camshaft. Just change the rocker ratio. This guy's here. You don't have to be fancy roller rocker arm. Oh, sure. But there's roller tip rocker arm. But it's the ratio that matters. Okay? When you have a 1.5 roller rocker arm and you have a 1.7 roller tip, he's gonna spank you. Especially when you pull the valve cover, he looks like his basic stock. Okay, so just think about that. And that's a big shift in power. Now you change the exhaust ratio as well. You know, it's a big jump for a small block Chevrolet to go from 1.5 to 1.7 ratio. And what we're going to be looking at is if we have a lobe lift of 350, let's say this is a typical Chevrolet with a 1.5 ratio, which is typical Chevrolet, we end up with a 525 lift camshaft. Now, we change that configuration, okay, and we'll see how we change this thing. Now we go 0.350 again, 350, and then we go to a low with a rocker ratio of 1.6 from 1.5, and you can buy this for a typical Chevrolet from 525. Now your valve lift becomes 560. Big change. That's like 35 thousandths more lift. Now we go change that to 0.350 again times 1.7. There are 1.7 rocker ratios out there available for small block Chevy. 1.7, look at that, 595. So you started with 525 on your small block Chevy to 595. If you go out there and change the, let's say you have a little hydraulic roller of 525 lift. Okay, you go from 1.5 to 1.7 ratio, 595. What you're going to be looking at possibly, no, not possibly, you will change valve springs. Dual valve springs, preferably, okay? Or you can get one of them new style valve springs that they sell out there from Camshaft, you know, single spring that'll handle that much lift. Beehive, I think, if they're available. Now, with a 595, that's a 70 thousandths more valve lift. That's big. You're gonna see horsepower with that, no doubt. On a Ford stock camshaft, you put a 1.7 ratio roller rocker arm on a 5.0 HO. Oh man, it responds. And this B cam, B303 cams, you know what? Just put a 1.7 ratio from what they call for 1.6, and you gain a 30 thousandths more lift. You gain a little bit more power. But so if somebody complains, oh, but then it got kind of soggy on the bottom, then phase the camshaft 2 degrees forward. Advance it, then put a 1.7 ratio rocker on the B cam, even on the E cam. Well, the B cam is a 303. Okay, that's what they call it. Actually, I don't know why it became B, E, F, X, or whatever. Actually, when it started, a B cam 303 is a lobe lift. 303 times lobe lift, it comes to what? 484, 485? Okay, 0.303 lobe lift times 1.6, it comes to about 485 rocker ratio. So that's where that thing came from. But I don't know why they added the alphabet letters right up, and they still called it a 303. I guess it's stuck. Get 0.303 times stock Ford ratio of 1.6, and look at what you're going to have. With the B303 is exactly that. 484 lift. That's your 485. That's what the B303 hydraulic roller, okay, that is basically out there. Now, you switch that over again to a 0.303 times 1.7 now. Look at what happens. 515. Big jump. Okay? So your B303 cam, which a lot of people are running, that's the cam you have. That is a jump of 35 thousandths. That is good. Now on the eCam, which is the other one that a lot of people are buying instead of the B-Cam, which is more applicable to fuel injection, the low lift is about 0.312. Okay, that's, I don't know why they call it the E303, because it's definitely, if you go E303 low lift, it's gonna be 484, 485. So you go times 1.6 for the eCam, 499, which is 500 lift. That's what the eCam calls for, if I remember correctly. Now, you switch that over, okay, to 0.312 again, and you go times 1.7. When you go to a 1.7 rocker, Ford Motorsport sells that, everybody else sells that one ratio added on. 530, beautiful. Okay, a 530 lift camshaft, excellent. And I prefer to run the B-Cam with a 1.7. Sometimes if it's a little softer on the bottom, I add 2 degrees or 4 degrees more forward on the camshaft. Or the eCam, I run it straight up with a 1.7 rocker, always. Not the 1.6, always with a 1.7. 530 lift. And your valve to piston clearance is still good. Now, when like on the Chevrolet, okay, with a 0.350, with a 1.5 ratio, that's 525 lift. When you go with a 1.7 on a Chevrolet from 1.5 to 1.7, you end up with like 595. As far as I know, like the Ford and the Chevrolets, even with a stock valve relief, they will clear. Very close, but they will clear. Now, if you have excessively milled heads or super thin head gasket, you might touch. You may touch. Okay, but like on a Ford, under 600, you'll clear. Granted, you get the stock ratio and stuff, valve relief and all that. Now, if you have an aftermarket, piston with no dome or flat top with a small valve relief, yeah, you're still clear under 600. Especially if you have like a 112 camshaft LC, that would even give you more clearance. Okay, so that's just a little outlook into getting more power without switching to the whole camshaft and the corresponding lifters and all that. Just change the rocker ratio. That would give you a whole lot. Okay? Now, some of you like to run the F-Cam, which has a lift of 512. Now, when you look at that lift, that would give us maybe a 320 low lift. Okay? So times 1.6, that will give us 512. There we go. 512 lift right there. Now, we take the same low lift and switch to a 1.7 ratio. Okay. Oops, excuse me. 0.320 again. 320. It's times 1.7. 0.7. Look what happens. 544. So from 512 to 544 lift. So all you guys out there with pushing through a blower with an F-Cam, I know a lot of you guys are doing that. That would definitely help. And same thing with the X-Cam or the other Alphabet camshaft, the Z-Cam. Just make sure you have enough valve springs. It doesn't hurt when you go with a higher ratio rocker arm. Okay, so that's something for the Ford guys, and I am sure same thing with the LS. Anytime you put more 1 point or 2 point higher rocker ratio, 1 point give you about 35 thousandths lift. Okay, now if you go 2 ratios up, they'll give you 70. 70 thousandths. 0.035 with a 1 point ratio increase, and a 2.0 from 1.5 to 1.7, they'll give you 70 thousandths. Okay, something to think about. Free horsepower, guys. Now I hope you guys enjoyed that alphabet soup description on those Ford Motorsport camshaft. Anyway, there are people out there who criticize, you know, the E, B, F cams and stuff, and I can understand that. But one thing is that when you go to a 1:7 ratio, it mimics a little bit more aggressive cam lobe as opposed to the other ones. Because maybe a lot of these people are saying the cam action on the valve train is a little bit timid. Well, the 1:7 ratio will give it a little bit of a bump into the whole lift spectrum. It's going to be a little bit more aggressive. But with that being said, when I have a specific camshaft that I try to build for a customer with a set goal, then I go with Isky for a custom build hydraulic roller or solid whatever, or I go with American Cam. But for out there, out of the box, a company, Anderson Camshaft. Okay, a lot of my efforts that has really impressed me and very impressive runs of the track. The Anderson Camshaft is very hard to beat. Specific, custom made, Isky, American Cam. So let me make that clear. Now, on this camshaft thing, let's touch bases on an all-out race car for a while. In 2006, I did an engine for somebody that ran really, really good. And then I did another engine for another person with a similar configuration. But this new engine has a lot more potential flow-wise. It's not all about power now. Flow, there's a lot in there. Thermal efficiency of the heads, the port recovery, combustion chamber, they all come into play in the whole scheme of things. Now, as my usual MO, I did the heads, put it on the car, ran it at the track, and ran very strong. Now, I pulled the heads off and I put it on my bench, and I was like going, huh? Almost 300 CFM on the exhaust, and this is a small block. I was going, that is a lot, especially for an NA. Basically what I'm doing was I was over scavenging. The intake column comes in, the exhaust is so freaking efficient, it blows it out the pipe. So my dynamic compression actually drops. And I was shocked, and I said, let me take this to another shop and flow test it with his bench and see. Maybe my bench here, I know reads low. If it's 298, I can imagine what it. Anyway, he checked it and he called me up and says, Ben, it's same thing. 295, 298. I go, my God, that is a lot of flow for a small block, especially NA. Man, you know, it's supercharged or whatever, sure, that'll work. But anyway, so what I did was I called up the two guys that ran the same similar engine, and I said, swap rocker ratio. The new engine had a 1.8. Take this 1.8 on the exhaust, give it to the other guy with a 1.7 intake. His 1.7 intake goes to his exhaust. Okay, so now even though the head flows big time on the exhaust, a smaller rocker ratio would drop it about 70 thousandths, which I think would have helped him out. Okay, no, 70 thousand, no, 35 thousandths. Okay, because it's 1 point. Anyway, that said, when both of these cars went out the track, the one with a 1.8 rocker now picked up ET. The one with the big exhaust, when I switched him to the small rocker arm, just to kill that exhaust a little bit, his 60-foot picked up. Everything picked up straight across the board. So basically, it's a plus for both of them. It shows that when you increase the rocker ratio, there's a definite power improvement when you do that on the intake. And on the exhaust, when you lessen the rocker ratio on the exhaust, guess what happens? Mid-range, picks up without sacrificing top end. Why is that? Exhaust is under big time pressure. Once you crack that open, if you can, some of these guys with a lot of boats, they have a hard time breaking rocker arms. The exhaust, they switch over to a steel rocker arm on the exhaust because it will actually break or flex. Now, on the exhaust side, with a big flowing exhaust cylinder head, he picked up mid-range without sacrificing top end. It's a win-win. That being said, when you look at a lot of these I should say high-tech, is always high-tech when you go all-out racing. But if you notice, the rocker ratio they recommend for these new cylinder heads, the exhaust ratio is usually smaller, or the duration is a lot more, 8, 10, 12 degrees more than the intake for this all-out 9,000 RPM or plus engine. But the lift, if it's like 950, 990 on the intake, it's about 900 on the exhaust, or 920. Think about that, okay? They see that the exhaust lift is not quite as sensitive as the intake. You can keep the door open, which is duration, okay? Duration is you keep the door open longer, but you don't have to open it that big, because once it's under pressure, a valve opens up, they all get out. Okay, just like the analogy of a barn full of horses itching to get out. As soon as you open the barn doors, it's not even all the way open, they are already out and running. By the time it gets to, you open the door big time, all the horses are gone. There's just air going by now. Same thing with the cylinder heads. The initial mass scavenging happens at the initial stages of the valve lift, okay? By the time it gets maximum lift, it's all gone. They'll pretty much speed of sound, they go out there, okay? So I will, another video, I'll put pressure on the exhaust on the cylinder head. I'll put a spark plug hole and I'll tap that plastic hammer on the valve, on the exhaust valve. And you hear it go, pa, pa. It tells you. And that's just 140 PSI, 135 PSI. What about when it's about a lot of heat and pressure from combustion? That sucker's gonna get out now. It's not gonna wait for full lift before it goes. Not like the intake, okay? It'll just get out. Well, let me phrase that back. Even the intake, the initial strong pull is at the overlap phase. The piston will only do about 1 out of 4 or 1 out of 5 pulling wise. The initial big rush is when that exhaust valve is closing, the intake valve cracks open, it gets a big yank. Okay? Take note of that. The piston doesn't do the majority of the pulling, the overlap does. Why they say 4th cycle? They forget the major cycle, which is the 5th cycle, that differentiates a race engine from a tractor engine. Okay? So overlap makes that a racing engine. That's the key. So 5th cycle race car, 4th cycle tractor or lawnmower engines. Anyway, hope you enjoy it. Let's continue on, guys. You guys can see the difference between a 7/16 on the left and a 3/8. Therefore, if you're trying to switch or will be switching to a different rocker arm ratio, may I suggest if you do option up for the 7/16 rocker stud. It is a lot sturdier and will hold the geometry better than the skinnier 3/8 stud on the right side. Something to think about. Remember also that when you're tightening your stud here, to keep it loose, and make sure you make all the necessary adjustment on the rocker arm, okay? And then when you're done, then you torque it down. You just don't bolt the plate up and expect it to function, because it's not. Okay, a lot of people just put the plate on, put the studs, and then torque them down. No, you gotta look at how it's sitting right there. Some are gonna be offset to the right, to the left. Center it by moving around the guide plate and then tighten it. Take off the rocker arm, torque it down, and recheck your alignment, your rocker alignment. Very few people do that, or are aware of it. And sometimes I see them, the rocker arm is running off the side like this. Truly the wrong way to be. Okay? Take note, guys. I hope this rocker arm video helps some of you guys and try to get a little bit more power out of your engines. It's just not a matter of just spending money to go fast. You got to be smart about it once in a while and try to buy the right things and plan and execute your goals with a lot of thought being put in mind, so that you get the best bang for the buck. Okay, guys, so again, please subscribe, like, and share this video to help us expand the Ben Alameda Racing channel. And thank you very much again, guys. Bye-bye. See you then.